You know things aren't going too well when your own staffers are outside your own house protesting you. President Joe Biden faced a rally of his own staffers outside the White House that are calling for a ceasefire. So I'm going to go over a couple of the images from this vigil, and I'll also show you as well some polling at the end of this video that really doesn't look too good right now. But we are a year away. To be clear, no doom and gloom yet, but it is a warning in terms of where things currently stand with not just Joe Biden staffers, but Democratic voters and their, I would say, lack of enthusiasm for the man. So this really all starts with this story that I covered I guess when this first came out a month ago. So this was back on November 14th. Biden administration staff signed open letter demanding ceasefire in Israel Hamas war. More than 400 employees for this letter for President Joe Biden signed an open letter demanding he pursue a ceasefire in the, again, it's not a war. One side has a military, the other side doesn't. Let's move on. Quote, we represent a coalition of Biden-Harris administration political appointees and civil servants positioned across the domestic and foreign policy spheres, working in federal agencies, departments, independent agencies, and the White House. So 400 employees at the time signed that letter. This is the current state. And again, that's a month ago. This is now, a month later, showing you just how devastating it's been for Palestinians in Gaza. So the current toll as of December 12th shows that at least 18,412 people have been killed in Gaza. And I mean, the graph here, the orange compared to the purple, it's not even close. I've shown this graph in many videos now, but they do keep updating this. So it is a good resource to go to. And nearly half of them are children. And this number, to be clear, is as of November 6th, but because of the ratio of children, the amount of children in Gaza, so 47% are under 18 years old, this ratio has likely continued since then. But it's impossible to really follow everything going on there, as an individual, because there have been so many. Every single day I wake up and I, check to see what's going on, and there's been a new atrocity. So it's just been absolutely devastating for the Biden administration to continue supporting this far right-wing Israeli government as they indiscriminately bomb 2.2 million people stuck in an open-air prison. Here is the vigil/protest. So Humera Pumek, who I think is for Reuters, yes, Reuters foreign policy reporter, tweeting here, dozens of Biden administration staffers hold a vigil outside the White House calling for a ceasefire. Quote, this is a quote from the vigil. The temporary ceasefire ended 13 days ago, and we are horrified to see the full resumption of killings, displacement, and bombardment of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. And here's a full screen image. It's good to see this sort of bravery from people that work for Joe Biden. I mean, yes, a lot of them cover their faces for obvious reasons. Newsweek writing here, more than 36 people, most donning sunglasses and masks to conceal their identities, participated in the evening vigil, according to media reports. Former State Department official turned activist Josh Paul, who resigned in October over the Biden administration's approach to the Israel-Hamas war, addressed the crowd during the demonstration in Washington, D.C. I gotta pause again. We gotta address this. All of these places are calling this a war. One side has massive bombs that they are dropping onto a civilian population. They have warplanes. They have tanks. They have an actual military. They have an Iron Dome to protect themselves from rockets that may be launched from Gaza. This is not a war. This is a humanitarian disaster where you have one world superpower backed by other world superpowers indiscriminately bombing it's now 2.3 million people in Gaza in a one of the most densely populated places on earth. Half of them children. This is not a war. The word war puts forth this idea that, oh, there are these two sides battling back and forth. That's not what is going on. One side is bombarding the other. There haven't been Israeli casualties since the October 7th attack. This is not a war. How could you possibly call this a war? It's not a war. But they all run with this because I don't know. I guess it's easy to try and take no side here and say it's a war. Conflict, I think, is a better term because there is a conflict happening. But to call it a war is disingenuous. Now, this follows as well. I mean, this hasn't been the first time that staffers have come out against Joe Biden. This is back a year ago, July 25th, 2022. Joe Biden's own staff are now saying he's not doing enough on climate change. And this is reporting from Julia Rock and David Sirota. Going on to right here, the letter to Biden and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, provided to the lever by a House Democratic staffer, is initialed by 165 staffers at federal health and environmental agencies and more than 80 congressional offices. They are demanding the president use more aggressive tactics to pass his long-promised climate agenda through the Senate. It really shows you what Biden, and this is not unique to Joe Biden. This is basically every politician ever, at least in national politics. But the promises made, especially when it comes to promises that are humanitarian promises based in facts and data, like dealing with the climate crisis, that they're never met. And yes, you can say, oh, but Joe Manchin at the time, oh, Kirsten Sinema, they're the problem. Ultimately, Joe Biden did not use his power through the bully pulpit. He did not put any threats on Joe Manchin to end his, political career or side with passing his agenda. There was, in fact, one of Joe Manchin's family members work for Joe Biden. Like, to have that sort of connection and just be completely unwilling. And now you have Joe Manchin. I don't know if he's still doing this, but threatening a third-party run after Joe Biden completely capitulated to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin comes out and pretends Joe Biden is too far left. Like, it's just, Manchin really just dragged Biden through the mud. He just treated him like his play toy. This is the President Joe Manchin administration. It's really embarrassing how weak of a president Joe Biden has been. And yes, there have been, of course, strong moments, but largely not because of him, because of hiring decisions made. Maybe he had some influence on those, but I'm talking more specifically about when it comes to the support for unions that we've surprisingly seen during the Biden administration and the changes in some of those rules around unions that benefit workers. That stuff has been incredible. But I have a very hard time believing that was done at the direction of Joe Biden. It's much more likely people that he hired and likely didn't know, or maybe didn't care enough, that were that he didn't care that they were really engaged on this issue. And look, I guess to his credit, you could say Joe Biden wasn't stopping the benefits to workers and the changes made to unionizing, but it's whatever. It's faint praise. Yes, there's some good stuff. There's good stuff happening. Of course, Joe Biden is not an authoritarian. He is not Donald Trump. Obviously, Joe Biden is a better president. I'm not sure if better is the word, but he's a more stable president than Donald Trump. And of course, in a year, I hope to God, as terrible as Joe Biden is, clearly, I hope to God Trump does not become president, because that could be the last election you ever see. So just it's important to include all of that here, because people get angry at me when I criticize Joe Biden. How could you not? How could you be okay with this president? It's very important, especially a year away from the election. It's very important right now to put pressure on Joe Biden, to criticize the man, to maybe, if we're really lucky, he just drops out. I know it's very late at this point. I know it's almost 0% chance of that happening. But that would be the best case scenario is if someone else replaces Joe Biden. But I don't think we're going to get that. So we're in a situation right now where Joe Biden has to do a lot better. He has to appeal to people he's lost. Because you look at stuff like this. Look at these polls. So this is from Real Clear Politics, but all different pollsters here. Well, a lot of these are Bloomberg, but we'll get to some others. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Just look at the Trump. Trump winning all of these by, in most cases, more than 1 point. This one is, interestingly, more divided in Pennsylvania when more people are on the ticket. So Kennedy, West, Jill Stein, that gives it's still a Trump victory, but only by 1 percentage point. But look at these. It's all Trump. It's all Trump. And we go down here, look at some others. The Economist, they have a general election tie. I will say general election polling means less because you're just polling nationally. The popular vote does not win the presidency. What matters more is state-by-state polling. So looking at important states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, this is what matters here. He's even losing Nevada here. Like, it's embarrassing. Arizona, he's losing. Some others here. This is CNN poll. Michigan, Trump winning that. Or this is, Trump and Biden. Trump winning that one. So, and I'll link to this below. You can go through all these polls yourself. But it's just not looking very good. And Joe Biden has really lost a lot of people, a lot of young people, especially with his support for this far right-wing Israeli government and their indiscriminate bombing of Palestinians.